Welcome to the Earthworks Podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello, everybody. This is Joel Simmons for the Earthworks Podcast. I am live with my friend Mike Kozak, who we're going to talk about all sorts of interesting things, including his life in a trailer as he travels around the country. Mike, thank you for joining me very much. I've been really excited about having you on board. I know a lot of people that you mentored, and I want to talk a lot about that. I have many friends who speak incredibly highly of you, and you and I have run into each other a few times over the years. But you've got a fairly long history in our golf industry, and you and I chatted a little bit the other day, and I learned all sorts of things that I did not know about you, like that you were from Minnesota, where our agronomist on the West Coast is from, Kevin Hicks. But talk to me about how you got into this business. You told me a couple interesting stories. I guess your dad and your uncle were golfers, and that kind of inspired you to get into this.
Well, they were both good amateur players in Minnesota, back in the 30s and 40s, and my whole family played golf, and I played golf from the time I was little, and really never thought much about golf course maintenance. I really didn't think much about the industry. I really didn't think much. I was a kid, and I can remember playing with my family, and we'd get up to the green and you'd scrape the aerifier plugs out of the way and go ahead and putt. Nobody ever complained about conditions or, it was what it was. And, most of the time we played winter rules, except when I got to I think I was age 12, my father said, don't ever touch the ball again. So from age 12.
That was the break-off point, was age 12. You can't mess around. You got to play straight up.
Playing straight up. And so that
doesn't seem fair, does it?
So I played golf all the way through high school, college, just recreationally. And when I was in college, I had stayed at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs and had a pamphlet there that listed all the golf courses in the state of Colorado. And for whatever reason, I had kept that. And when I graduated from college, I taught school for a year and said, I really don't want to do this anymore. And started writing letters to all these golf courses in Colorado, and got a letter back from Estes Park, Colorado, that said, we'll hire you.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Just what year was this, Mike?
It was 1976.
So you write a letter to a golf course and they just hire you from a letter.
Correct.
Of course, they were paying you a huge sum of money, I recall from our conversation the other day.
I believe it was $1.65 an hour is what I was.
And you worked 80 hours a week.
And I got a premium because I at night, because I was a night waterman, I worked from 6 at night till 2 in the morning.
Oh my goodness!
Watering manually, and I got a bonus at night. I made $1.85 at night.
Oh, you were in the money at that point.
I was rolling in it. Let me tell you.
Now, did you have family at this point, or were you before all that started? The family.
No, I moved sight unseen to Estes Park. Never been there. Didn't know anybody. Just went there because it sounded like a great place, and I like Colorado. So,
were you married at the time?
No, I was single.
Okay, so you're just a single guy. You said pick up and go. I don't care if I don't make any money.
Yeah, I load everything in my car and go.
There you go.
It's pretty easy to move, and what didn't fit in my car got left behind.
It was your college degree in education? You said
no, I had a degree in elementary education. I taught first grade for a year. So
did you really?
And decided that was not going to be my calling for the rest of my life. So
yeah.
Leave me with the kids, it was fine, but to deal with the administrative end of it. So
I tell this story often. I came out of college with an ag ed degree, and I taught high school for a year, and I was only a couple years older than a lot of the kids that were in my class, which was a little disturbing. And I remember I taught at school where I had 2 production greenhouses, big greenhouses, and it was filthy. It was dirt, it was soil everywhere. And I was a kid right out of college. I didn't have fancy pants. And my principal came down to me and said, you got to wear real proper slacks. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't own slacks. And secondly, I'm in a greenhouse all day long. I'm literally working greenhouse all day long, and I'd be filthy unless, and I was probably making a couple bucks, and I think I was making $1,000 a month. And I said,
Yeah.
"You're not paying me enough to afford slacks." And so we went back and forth, and I know exactly what you mean by having administrative problems. And I
Yeah.
guess it didn't work out when I elbowed him in the face playing basketball after school one day, and my career in high school teaching ended it quickly. But so you're now in Estes, and and again, I've got all my notes here because we talked the other day, and I found a lot of this thing. So you're now in Estes, and then you got down into the Phoenix area.
Yeah, I got laid off that first summer. They didn't have any work for me, so everybody said go to Phoenix. Everybody's hiring down there. There's a zillion golf courses. I went to Phoenix, loaded everything in my car, went to Phoenix, and of course got there, and this was pre-overseed, so nobody was hiring anybody. They were laying everybody off. So
Right.
I was fortunate to find a job with a guy by the name of Mick Reifert at the time was Century Country Club, which is now Orange Tree, I believe, country club in Phoenix. And I worked for Mick for 2 weeks, and I had been to a lot of golf courses, and I got a call from another course, and they said, well, we'll pay you $1 an hour more.
There you go.
And I left Mick, you know.
And that changed your life, didn't it?
He's never forgiven me for it. So I left him after 2 weeks and ended up out at Fountain Hills. And I worked at Fountain Hills that winter, and then went back to Estes Park the following spring.
I've asked Kevin Hicks this question because he's a Minnesota boy going down to the desert. But what was it like coming out of, growing up in Minnesota? Now you're finding yourself working in the desert.
It was nice because it was the first time I'd ever experienced non-winter.
Right, there's no snow.
And that winter was my first Christmas away from home.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean,
no snow.
with no snow. I was 23 years old, and
Didn't miss the white Christmas thing,
It was a very lonely Christmas. I didn't have enough money to buy a plane ticket to go home, so I stayed. I was living in a garage, somebody's garage in Scottsdale.
Oh, that's too funny.
A little tiny apartment in the garage. But while I was young, dumb, and single, I never, ever once, I lived by myself all the time, and I never once paid more than $100 a month in rent.
There you go. Well, how could you when you're making, what you were making at the time?
I couldn't afford any more.
So you go back to Colorado, and then you end up coming back to Phoenix, right? Is that the path?
No. Well, I went back to Colorado. I went back to Estes Park for 4 years. They gave me a full-time job when I got back there. I worked there for 4 years, and then ended up with an opportunity to go to Winter Park, Colorado. From there, and
that was with the Wadsworth group.
Well, it was actually a rec district that had just formed in Winter Park, and I got an in through a gentleman I had met in Estes Park, Wendell Lay, who owned YMCA of the Rockies in Granby, Colorado. Became a very good friend. He was the one that donated the land to build the golf course on, and consequently, through the friend I had met in Estes Park, he knew Wendell. He introduced me to the rec board. I ended up with the rec board, and consequently, I got that job because I was incredibly cheap. I got a job to grow in a golf course.
Yeah.
In Colorado with Wadsworth Golf Construction's one of their first, construction jobs in the Western U.S.
Yeah.
Right along with Castle Pines, which is at the same time going in. They were being built at the same time, and Dennis Griffiths, Kirby Player out of Atlanta, Georgia, was the architect. Dennis Griffiths was the on-site architect. And it was a great opportunity to get to know some people. But I got the job only because I worked for $1,000 a month.
There you go.
And that first summer was, as I mentioned before, I always looked at things, if I can pull this off, where will it take me? Yeah, I looked at it as a tremendous opportunity to meet these people. And I went over there and I really didn't know any better. So I ended up growing in 9 holes of golf by myself that first summer. And every time Dennis Griffiths came to town, every time Wadsworth, John Cotter came to town, they said, this guy cannot do this by himself. and consequently I ended up doing it for 5.5 months by myself. I worked from light to dark, 7 days a week for 5.5 straight months, without a day off. And I had no life other than going home, reading turf books, going to bed, and getting up and doing it again. And
What year was this?
that was 1981.
So what's the difference between construction in 1981 and construction programs now? Can you address that? I mean, it's got to be pretty. I mean, what were they doing back then? Was it was there a USGA spec at the time?
No, there was not. There was a spec, but I don't know that the USGA was specking it.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there was a USGA spec at that time. I'm sure there was, but it really wasn't followed all that much. We did an 80-20 there at Pole Creek, and I was shocked when they came and started blowing up the bales of peat on the green, and then running it in with a rototiller.
That's how it was done. So it was flipped in with a rototiller.
Yep, on the green surface.
Yeah. We, as you know, we've done an awful lot of construction, and we do a lot of amendments that get flipped in with rototillers.
Sure.
And it was that era of flipping in peat moss that got us a lot of criticism, because the USGA reps were all basically saying this is a horrible way to do this. I can't imagine trying to flip peat in with a rototiller. I mean, it must have been.
Get any kind of consistency. Yeah,
right,
I mean,
exactly. I mean, I don't even know. You might know this better than I, but I don't even know when we went to actually blending
it.
Yeah, when did that start happening? Do you know?
I blended stuff at late 80s.
Okay, so it was still a good 5-10 years later than you were doing this.
Yeah.
But we got an awful lot of criticism because we were trying to flip in, basic mineral and organic amendments, physical amendments like zeolite,
Sure.
but we would flip it in with a rototiller. But it wasn't that really fluffy, unmanageable material that you guys must have. I can't even imagine what that had to be like. Did you get me in?
You end up with a lot of mushrooms that way.
Yeah, you must have breathed a lot of it in, I'm assuming, right?
Actually, they did a really good job blending it. I was surprised at how well it worked.
This was the construction company that was doing it?
This was Wadsworth, yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually very surprised at how well it worked.
So how many properties did you grow in back in those days? You did a couple of them, I know that.
I did Pole Creek, I did Levita, I did Forest Highlands, and then I did Lahan.
Oh, you did do, that's right. You did do Forest Highlands. So you left Colorado, went back down to the desert, and you built Forest Highlands.
Well, Forest Highlands is at 7,000 feet in Flagstaff, so it isn't. It's winter. We're 2 hours north of Phoenix, so.
Oh, that's true. So you're not. Yeah, you weren't quite.
Not in a desert. I did go to the desert because the job wasn't ready when I left Levita. I had to leave Levita. It was going under rapidly. It was sinking fast. They were repossessing equipment out of my maintenance building, and I had to leave. And out of concern of not getting paid, I went to Phoenix on a wing and a prayer. I had a letter from the Highlands Group saying that they would hire me if their financing came through. So I went down and laid pipe at Desert Mountain, Renegade, the original golf course at Desert Mountain, laying pipe there for 3 months working for Wadsworth.
Wow.
Until May, when the financing finally came through with that project, and I ended up going to Flagstaff. And that was the start of a 28-year, call it a marriage, if you will, with a group of guys that really advanced my career tremendously. And, I think I couldn't think any higher for those in Jim Bartlett, Nick Hackstock, Ron Todd, Dick Bailey. Those guys, Dick Bailey just passed away this past summer.
Yeah, I'd heard that. That's not.
Yeah, but we, I had a great run. 28 years, a long time. So and I was fortunate that those guys recognized me, gave me an opportunity to get involved in an ownership position, and invest some of my own money and go that route. So it felt pretty good.
So you got down to Forest Highlands about the same time Cal Roth got down to Scottsdale area, right?
Literally at the same time. Cal and I became close friends at that time,
Yeah.
and actually we're friends from Colorado. I had known Cal from Colorado days, and he had gone from Iron, what is it, Iron? I can't name it, Boulder, the club in Boulder he was at, the municipal there. Then he went to Plum Creek where he got involved with TPC, and then down to Scottsdale. So
I didn't know this until you told me the other day, but there was only, what did you tell me, 3 or 4 superintendents at Forest Highlands?
3 superintendents. I was just looking at that this morning. Actually, Drew Ann, and I hired Drew Ann in there in 1988, and he became superintendent when I went to Fort Worth in January of '92, and he retired from there. It'll be 2 years in January that he's been retired, and no, he left there and left it to Bill Abbey, who Bill was working there at the time when I was there.
Wow.
And Drew hired Bill on the crew in 1989, and Bill is still there, and now Bill took Drew's position. And
So Bill,
the amazing thing about those 3 guys is none of us have a turf degree, so must be doing something right. That golf course is in great shape, and always has been, and continues to be so. So
you don't need no stinking degrees. Come on, just grow grass.
Well, it's amazing how many, you had Drew, Bill, Mike Dries ended up as a superintendent there. He's one of the superintendents there now.
Yeah.
And it also produced 2 female superintendents, Cheryl Ongst and Kay Ryan. Both came out of Forest Islands.
Is that your phone ringing?
Yeah, it's my phone. Let's see.
Turn your phone off. Bye.
Yeah, geez, don't worry about it. Well, actually, it's a guy. It's a guy that's calling me from Pensacola Country Club that I worked with a couple of years ago when I was down here. And we're just trying to get together with him.
Let's keep walking down your thing, because I want to get into talking really about some of these guys that you've mentored that we know well. But you went from Forest Highlands down, you bounced around a little bit before you got up to Northern California.
Well, I went from Forest Highlands. I was doing due diligence on a project that Jim Bartlett and Nick Hackstock were considering doing a management contract on, and also, maybe perhaps helping out with the development in Fort Worth, Texas, called Mira Vista Country Club. And I was down there doing due diligence before Richard bought the property, doing all the exterior amenities, swimming pools, tennis courts, golf courses, maintenance buildings, equipment, all of that. And on one of the trips down there, they were interviewing general managers, and we're sitting around having dinner, and they were interviewing this guy, and I was sitting there daydreaming, thinking, geez, yeah, I could do this job. And as soon as heck we get back to the hotel, and I go up to my room, and my phone rings, and it's Nick, and he says, why don't you come down and have a beer with us? Okay, so I went down, and they said, well, we had dinner with the general manager tonight. I said, well, you're going to hire that guy? He said, no, we're going to hire you. So they offered me the job as general manager at Mira Vista, going from a superintendent's job I really kind of acted as the assistant general manager at Forest Highlands in the wintertime, because they didn't have a general manager in the winter. So I was there year round and had a little bit of experience there. So I ended up going down there as a GM, and that's where I got involved in an ownership interest. And really, that was probably the only way that would have gotten me to go there.
Right.
So I of all the things, I had an hour-long conversation with my wife, and of all the things I had to tell her, this was on January 8th, and I had to tell her I had to be there on January 17th, sitting in the GM's chair.
Great. Hopefully you were making more than $1,000 a month.
So anyway, I ended up there. I was a GM there for 4.5 years, had a great group there, a great crew there, and left there. Mike Epps is still the superintendent there, who I hired. Mike is just a great guy.
Yep.
I'll tell you. And so I left there. They were starting to do a project up in Northern California. They had a piece of property up there. I didn't really know anything about it other than the fact that Dick Bailey was going to go out on his own and start doing golf course design, and he asked me to do some work with him. So I was up in Northern California with Dick up at White Hawk Ranch, which is about 40 miles north of Truckee, California. And on the way back through, we stopped to visit this piece of property that they had their eye on there, and went out there in the snow, looked around, and they ended up buying the property and going ahead and moving forward with the development there.
So your first visit on that property was snow covered?
Uh-huh.
So you didn't really see the ground. I mean, you could kind of see a little bit of the layout, but you didn't really know what you were looking at.
Well, the design there was already done. I mean, the routing was already done.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Done. That was an interesting story in and of itself. It's a J. Moorish routing with the Tom Weiskopf designed golf course.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. So you got up there, and then you got involved with Martyrs Camp as well, right?
I got involved with Martyrs Camp. Probably we bought that property in late 99, 2000, early 2000. And yeah, I started working on that right away. I mean, I walked that routing, geez, I don't know, 200 times probably. I knew that property like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And I started, doing a lot of work with that, a lot of meetings, a lot of prep, a lot of advanced planning. So consequently, I kind of had to turn over, the duties at Lahontan to somebody else, and that somebody else was Kevin Breen.
Right.
I don't know if you know Kevin or.
I know Kevin very well.
I assume you do.
Great guy. One
Kevin
of my favorites, actually. Very, very. I mean, actually, I think he might have been short of Wilbur, perhaps, but he might have been the first guy that kind of really told me about you, because he had talked so highly of you. And Kevin is. I consider Kevin one of the better agronomists in this industry, and
I would agree with you.
And he always spoke very highly of you, and that's when I started hearing this name. Who is this Mike Kozak guy? But
he's about to become the vice president of the GCSAA.
Yes, he is. As a matter of fact,
very exciting. He's been working on it a long time. He started working on it way back when 2000 probably.
Yeah, he's
had it for 20 years, and I congratulate him. What a great thing. He had set a goal, and there he is. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, no, he's done, and his property is beautiful. He's continually, improving where he is, and it's just.
I would agree.
Los Gatos, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful property. He's doing some great stuff on. So you went from down there down to Sonoma as a GM, and that's where the golf career kind of ended.
Yeah, I was at Lahontan, and in 2003, my brother passed away in a private plane crash in January. And Jim and Nick were very, very kind to give me really a lot of leeway and a lot of time. So I literally took 2 months off and just kind of trying to get my head on straight.
Yeah.
And decided that I really didn't want to go back to what I was doing. I didn't want to stay. So when I came back after 60 days off and 60 days away, I met with Jim and Nick, flew down to Phoenix, met with those guys, and I said, geez, I really, I don't want to do this anymore. And, they both looked at me and said, geez, we really would like to have you at Martis and continue to work on Martis and go down to Sonoma as the general manager, or not to go down to Sonoma and do the renovation. They were planning to do a renovation. They had a contract, a management contract, and they said, if you can go down there and manage that for 3 days a week and be up here for 3 days a week at Martis, great. So I said, well, okay, I can do that. I'll go down and I'll help you with the project in Sonoma. I'll get us through that, and probably after the Schwab Cup that first year, I'm going to depart. That's going to be enough for me. So I'll handle that, and so I went down there and was doing the renovation work. Did $1.5 million renovation work on Sonoma Golf Club, which is just a great great golf course.
It is a beautiful club.
Golf course. And went down there and did that, and lo and behold, in August, the general manager resigned. I got a phone call and said, "Gee, what do you think of this? Would you like to go be the general manager at Sonoma?" I thought long and hard about it, and I said the only way I could do that would be to completely disassociate myself from trucking. I just want to walk away from that, and they allowed me to do that, and I really had no more involvement other than talking to Bauer quite a bit during the construction process. And,
how long were you at Sonoma?
I was at Sonoma for 11 years, my longest time in one place ever in the golf business. Never in my wildest dreams.
So
I hadn't planned to be there more than 6 months.
Right, usually the case. Here's why I really wanted to talk to you today, because there are, you've already kind of dropped a handful of these names, but you have been one of the strongest mentors of young superintendents in this industry. And some of the names that we're going to roll through here, many folks that listen to our show will know, but guys that I've known for a long time. And we'll start with the young kid that you took out of high school back in Colorado that became a dear friend of both of ours, Mr. Dave Wilbur, whom a lot of people that listen to us know well. But you literally found Dave out of high school? I did not know that. I had no idea until you and I talked the other day. Is that where he came?
Oh yeah, no, I went over to because where am I going to get employees in Granby, Colorado? When they actually let me hire somebody the following year, after the first year, I went over to Granby High School in the middle of winter and put up a thing on the bulletin board that said, summer employment available. And lo and behold, who calls me but Dave Wilbur.
There you go. High school student Dave Wilbur.
High school student, rodeo king.
There you go.
Yeah.
All of it.
All of the above, chef, you name it.
Yeah.
And
so what did you see in Dave Wilbur as a high school kid that you thought might be good?
He just seemed like a hardworking kid.
Yeah.
With a good head on his shoulders, and that's really what I saw. And lo and behold, I was right. He could do a lot of things that I couldn't do. I mean, Dave, I think, still laughs at me when I was cutting rebar on the floor in the shop with a torch, and the marks, I think, are still in the concrete. And he laughed at me wholeheartedly. I mean, Dave could weld. He knew how to handle a torch. He could do a lot of things that I was not familiar with.
How long did he work for you?
He was there. Let's see. He worked till he was graduated high school, and then he went to school in what the heck is the name of that town?
I don't know.
I went to school in at University of Northern Colorado. And,
okay.
And then I ended up hiring him again when I went to Levita, Colorado. I went down there. He helped me grow in Levita.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that either. That's interesting.
He came down there, spent one summer there, and he got the heck out of there before the thing collapsed.
That was all part of the savings and loan debacle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So everything hit the floor, and everything
hit the floor, and it's unfortunate because all of that money is gone, and all of those things are now grown over and don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that is a shame. That is a shame.
Weisskopf always told me that they would discover that one day. They will
maybe that golf course. You never know. There used to be a golf course here. Maybe
the Weisskopf Morris design.
Yeah. Well, now with the unsurge, the growth of golf this year because of COVID, maybe this is the time to do that. Maybe you should go talk to somebody. Say, hey, I know where there's a property we can probably get quickly, and it was probably in good shape at one point.
I'd have to agree with Tom. It's going to be 100 years before anybody's going to go there. I mean, Levita is 2.4 miles past the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's you go to nowhere and turn left, I think.
Yep.
So you mentioned Scott Bauer's name. Scott is another one who I have the deepest of respect for. So he was on crew at help me with this, Marta's camp, or was he up at Lahadin?
I hired him. I mean, I saw all these things coming. This was in probably Kevin came to work for me in 1997.
Yeah.
Up there. And Scott, I'm trying to think of what year he came there. Off the top of my head, I think it was 99, 2000 that I hired Scott. and I'm looking. I kept looking ahead. I've got Marta's Camp over here. I've got Lahontan here. We're going to build a par 3 course at Lahontan. Yeah, and I need more bodies here, and so I started looking. I needed to hire somebody because I knew I was going to need a superintendent at Marta's Camp, and I knew that I was going to have somebody at Lahontan. So that all played out was I hired Scott Bauer with a specific idea of him going to Marta's Camp and Kevin Breen taking over when I left Lahontan and staying at Lahontan. That was always my intent from day one. So I hired Scott for that reason, hired him as a second assistant, and he came in and did a great job until I departed in 2003.
Now these guys, I mean, Kevin and Scott, I mean, again, I consider these guys some of the best agronomists I know.
I got to throw Matt Dunmer in there too.
And I was just gonna mention Matt's name as well, and I'll throw Josh Clevenger's name in there as well. But I mean, these guys, that's again why I wanted to talk to you today, because these guys I consider some of the best in the business, and they're all good agronomists. They understand how a soil really works. They understand the concept of the carbon to nitrogen ratio. Is it fair for me, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm assuming they got a lot of that from you.
What they got from me was the exposure to growing dirt and not growing grass. That's what they got from me.
Yeah.
And I followed that tilt from going all the way back to Colorado when I was out there by myself growing in that 9 holes, watching that prairie grass outside the fence come in beautifully every spring and flourish all summer, and then go dormant in the fall and do the same thing the following year. That's what really got me interested in soil. I'm going, there's a reason for that. And
every one of these guys though are really top-notch soils guys. We don't, there's a lot of superintendents who I don't know that I would necessarily throw in the box of being soils guys, but Kevin and Scott and Josh and Matt, obviously Mr. Wilbur, who really took it down the road. You mentored some of the best soils guys in the industry. So, I mean, it's something that you did there had to have put them in that mindset of saying, there is something about the soil that has something to do with growing grass.
Well, I like I say, again, I exposed them all to it, and I gave them all the opportunity to explore it, and explore it we did. I mean, we pushed all the boundaries at Lahontan, Kevin and I. I mean, we pushed that thing to the very edge. Yeah. And, and now Scott at Marta's is doing the same thing, I let them do it. I didn't, I really had it was wonderful to work for who I work for.
Right.
Okay. That was what was the key to all of this, was the fact that I worked with the same group of people for 28 years, and they had enough faith in me to do what I was doing. Yeah. And they never, ever once said, do this, do that, hire this guy, hire that guy. No, it was all on me. And I like to think that I did a great job for those guys, and mentoring the guys that I had, I always looked for people that, basically had the same work ethic and commitment that I did.
So that leads me to my next question or two, really, and they're probably, similar in nature, but your mentoring and advice that you would give a superintendent. I mean, as I travel the country and I talk to a lot of superintendents, one of the first questions they always ask me, and it might have had a lot to do with the fact that I taught for so long at Rutgers and I have a lot of, guys that I knew, but the first question was always, do you know any assistants? Where do I find somebody? First question is, how do you vet somebody? You get a guy walking in your door like a Scott Bauer who you don't know from Adam. How do you interview a guy, anybody, guys that are good, guys that are bad? What makes, what questions do you ask? How do you vet a guy that you want to make into a Scott Bauer or into a Kevin Breen, and how do you identify that in that hour that you might have interviewing them?
No, I found, and this is a tool I use the whole time. I don't have it in front of me. I got it in my computer somewhere, but I had I don't know what, I don't even know what you call it. And to be honest with you, Joel, I don't even know where I got it. But I guarantee you that Scott Bauer would tell you this, Kevin Breen would tell you this, Josh Clevenger would tell you this, Jason Goss would tell you this, Matt Dunmer would tell you this. I don't think I ever gave it to Wilbur, but it was a test of questions, and basically, which to me, there were no right or wrong answers to any of the questions.
Was this a DISC profile? The DISC, D-I-S-C?
No, I don't think so.
Something similar to that, though?
Probably something similar. I don't know, something similar. But it had no questions whatsoever to do with turf or management, nothing.
Did it allow you to identify whether or not these guys had a work ethic?
It allowed me to identify whether they thought the same way I did.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that's really what I was looking for more than anything.
How could you determine work ethic? How could you tell if a guy's actually going to be there on time, work hard, understand that this is a job that's not easy? I mean, work ethic is a challenge to find these days.
Just talking to references more than anything.
Yeah.
Talking to them. I mean, Kevin Breen, I needed an assistant superintendent, and I had one day to interview Kevin. And the only way I could do that was fly. I flew from Reno, Nevada to Albuquerque, New Mexico, drove from Albuquerque to Los Alamos, interviewed Kevin, got back on an airplane, went back to Reno, and was home that night. I had one day to do that. I did that in one day, but it told me all I needed to know just walking around the golf course with Kevin.
So what was it? Let's use Kevin as the example, because I think a lot of people know Kevin, but what strikes you with a guy like Kevin when you're seeing him for a couple of hours? What hit home that said to you, this is the guy?
His commitment to what he was doing,
his
dedication to what he was doing, his knowledge of what he was doing. He was excited.
Yeah, and that's Kevin. That's definitely Kevin.
Excited about growing grass.
Yeah.
And what his water quality was. And I mean, just things like that. I use Matt Dunmer as another example. We met Matt Dunmer in Anaheim at the show before before GCSAA. This is a bizarre story. Before GCSA did away with that and now have computers sitting there. They used to have a job board. They used to have a place where you could hang your resume. All kinds of people hung out, talked to each other. And imagine my surprise one year when I went in there, that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That's where I used to go to hire people. I'd stand there all day at that show. Yeah. It was wonderful. But that's where I met Matt Dunmer.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin and I were looking for a guy, and we went down there to that board, and we were standing there. We walk up, and who's standing there but Mark Bunty?
Oh, really?
Mark Bunty is talking to, he was at Lake Wildwood at the time. He was talking to Matt Dunmer. And we walked up, and Mark Bunty, kind of laughingly says, "Here, you talk to this guy. He's looking for a job," and walks away like he couldn't get away fast enough, right?
Oh, there's a testimonial.
Yeah. So Matt, we talked to him briefly. He was finishing up at Lake City Community College. Matt Dunmer moved 2,000 miles, sight unseen, to Truckee, California, on a wing and a prayer, with nothing more than, "We got a job for you. Come on." And he came. So that right there tells me.
Now look at him.
That tells me what kind of guy Matt Dunmer is, right there. And the funny part of this whole story is, who did Matt Dunmer replace at Sonoma Golf Club?
Yeah, exactly.
You know who he replaced at Sonoma Golf Club?
Actually, I don't know. Who?
Mark Bunty.
Oh, I did know that. I'm sorry. Yes, I did know that. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah.
It is. It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
But that's again, I'm just, you've heard my slogan, work hard, do a good job, good things will happen to you.
Yeah.
If good things don't happen to you, go find somewhere they will happen to
do
you.
it somewhere else.
Because everybody's looking for good employees.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
And they're incredibly hard to find. And the word there, the secret word there is good. I mean, there's a lot, there's not many people that really want to jump in our business, but like I said, you got some, we didn't talk much about Josh Clevenger, but he's one of my favorite. I love
Josh is an awesome guy.
Yeah. I love where he is now. I do a lot of work with Josh, and I just love what he's done there and his vision. And again, he gives you an awful lot of credit for what he's done in the years. Let's shift gears a little bit here, and I'll tell one story, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but I think it was, I know it was Mr. Wilbur. We came up to visit you at Sonoma. We went out to your favorite taqueria, and you had just come back from China.
Yeah.
And you had spent, I don't know how long you were there for a bit of a while.
3 weeks.
And that whole lunch, I think the most of that lunch, you blew me away by just telling me all these stories of your travels to China. And I'm like, wow, I want to go to China. I mean, you walked the wall, I recall, right?
Yeah, I walked away. It was fascinating. I mean, what a fascinating place. And I'm glad I went when I did, because I don't know that I'd want to go there now.
No, probably not.
But they were just finishing up the Three Gorges Dam there. I don't know if you know anything about that project on the Yangtze River. Phenomenal. These guys, what they're doing over there. And we toured pretty much the whole country. I got to see the Terracotta Warriors. Just fascinating. Fortunately, for a number of years there, I was able to take off and do a lot of traveling with my wife, in Europe, China, Ireland, Scotland. So I'm very, very fortunate to have that opportunity to do that.
I know you're a big golfer, but I assume China was not a golfing destination for you.
It was not a golfing destination.
I didn't think so.
It was just a tour, and met a lot of nice folks, and being part of a tour, I really didn't know what it was going to be like, but I'll tell you the story, a reason we went. I used to get I went to school at the University of North Dakota. I used to get alumni brochures, and I had a brochure came, and I had a trip to China, through the Alumni Association.
Oh, really? That's not okay.
Yeah, and I just had it sitting on a table. And for years, my wife did not fly. I mean, years, probably 20 plus years, would not get on an airplane. Petrified of airplanes, would not get on an airplane. And lo and behold, this was in 2010, about a month prior to our departure to China, my wife's best friend, lifelong friend, passed away of pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
She was diagnosed and dead within 3 weeks. Boom.
Gosh.
Gone. And she picked up that brochure and handed it to me, says, I want to go to China. I looked at her. I said, Denise, you do realize that's a 14 plus hour flight to China.
A day.
She says, if I can do that, then I can go anywhere. And sure as heck, she did it. And now she does fly anywhere. Actually, I just put her on an airplane the other day. I flew from Pensacola to Seattle.
So let's talk about this life of yours today. So you basically hung up the job title at Sonoma, bought an RV, and just became Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, Sonoma ended. Sonoma sold. Managing contract ended. They would have kept me at half my salary, and I really didn't want to go out and look for another job at half my salary. So I said, I looked at Denise. I said, let's figure out how to do this, and we did, and walked away at age 60. And very, very fortunate to do that. And we have, I lived my last 5.5 years of work. I lived in an RV in a campground in Petaluma, California, as a general manager at Sonoma Golf Club. Not many people know that. At least I think they don't know that.
I did not know that. You were because of the construction?
No, I couldn't afford 2 houses. I had a house in Truckee. Had a house in Truckee.
Yeah.
I was renting a house down in Sonoma, and I couldn't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
So my wife's looking at me going, let's get an RV. Okay. So she found the campground, she found the RV, and I moved into it, and I lived in it for 5.5 years. The last 5.5 years I was there.
And we're talking to you from your RV now, correct?
I am sitting in my RV in Pensacola, Florida right now. Yeah.
This is another great story of Mike Kozak. So you give up, your career ends, and you and your wife just pick up and you just start circling the country, right? You've gone around, what, 2 or 3 times now?
Yeah, probably 4.
4 times.
Not the same places all the time, but yeah, probably
of course
4.
not.
I put 170,000 miles on my truck and close to 100,000 miles on the RV in the 6 years we've been at it.
Wow.
So we just had a wonderful time. We've had a lot of fun. It's been very difficult with the virus to travel because of the uncertainty from place to place. So you
literally circled the country. So this is exit strategy for every superintendent. I mean, pick up, grab the RV and go. Give me some ideas of some of your favorite places you've been.
Favorite places I've been. Probably one of my favorites is in the UP of Michigan. And the Apostle Islands up underneath Lake Superior there. Up in Bayfield, Wisconsin. That whole area on the bottom of Lake Superior is truly phenomenal. Just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, there's your Minnesota roots coming out, I think.
And then, the next place is where we've decided to settle and buy a home. We're going to buy a home in the mountains of North Georgia, about 100 miles north of Atlanta.
That is beautiful countryside, right?
Absolutely gorgeous. Started the Appalachian Trail, which my wife is hopes to finish hiking this year.
Yeah, you were telling me that. So she hikes the Appalachian Trail, and you golf. Why aren't you?
Well, she hikes, and I support her.
You're not hiking with her. Come on, why don't you strap the boots on and get going?
Number one, my back. I can't carry a pack.
Yeah.
Number two, my knees are about gone.
That's too bad.
Really can't do it anymore.
But
I do hike a lot with her, but not like that.
But she's actually out there getting up and down the trail. That's a long trip.
She did 1,400 miles of it. She did 800 the first year, 600 the second year. She's got about 800 left and hopes to finish that. She wanted to finish it last summer, but that they closed the trail. And so she's going to try and finish it this year.
Yeah. What's the stretch that she needs to finish? The northern part up in Maine?
From Penmar, Pennsylvania, to Grafton Notch, the border of New Hampshire, Maine.
Okay.
So she's done all of Maine already.
Okay, she got the top part, but she's got that little window there.
She did all of Maine, and then she did from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Penmar.
Wow, good for her.
So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. I'm incredibly proud of her, and she wanted something she wanted to do, and I was the guy that told her I had to be in Fort Worth in 9 days.
Right.
Sell the house, pack up the house.
Yeah.
So the least I can do is help her.
There's another great lesson for superintendents to learn. Take care of your wife after all these years. So I promised you I was going to tell this story, and it's truly one of my favorite stories. And I just shared it with Armin Sunia right before we got on the phone.
Okay.
But and I tell this story often. But so you end up pulling the RV into Orlando, Florida.
In the fall of 2015, yes, we were going to spend the winter in Orlando.
So you come up to Celebration Golf Course and you go up just knocking on the door. I mean, let me tell my part of the story, and then you can correct anything that might be wrong. So
I got an introduction to that. I will tell you that Peter McCormick gave me that introduction.
Oh, to Ryan?
He gave me the number. He gave me his phone number and name.
So the superintendent, Ryan Burke, is now at Celebration, and good young guy. And I walk in one day. I've never met Ryan. I've never been on his property. I don't know the man. And we're sitting there talking, and he goes, "Yeah, I just got this guy came walking in, and he says he knows about. He's superintendent. da, 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 and he wants to, just mow fairways. And I'm not sure about, like his name's Mike, and he says he's from Northern California. He said, Northern California? I know most people from Northern California. And he's, fumbling around for this, his resume somewhere, or whatever piece of paper he drew wrote your name down on. And he pulls up and he goes, oh yeah, here it is. Mike Kozak. I'm like, Mike Kozak? And my reaction just blew up. And he's like, he's now like worried because he's thinking, what have I done? I mean, I'm like, do you have any idea who Mike Kozak is? I, gave him this laundry list of guys that we just talked about. And I said, this guy's been in the business for a long time. He's mentored a ton of great superintendents. And now Ryan's like, uh-oh. And I'm looking around, and again, I don't know Ryan from Adam, and I'm looking around and I see a lot of his crew guys in it, and they're all coming in their, their work jumpsuits. And I'm like, hey, Ryan, can I ask you a question? Is Mike going to be wearing one of those? Oh yeah, all of our guys wear one. I'll give you $100 if you get me a picture of Mike Kozak in his jumpsuit where it says Mike right here. And he started laughing, and clearly I blew your cover. Which, I mean, what's the chances of that happening? Really, I mean, the chances of you coming in you just wanted to mow fairways and get golf, right? Wasn't that the plan?
Yeah, I wanted to mow fairways or do something that I work. Maybe I wanted to work on Saturday and Sunday morning when I know it's absolutely impossible for a superintendent to find people to work.
Right.
And I wanted to give them somebody that they knew was going to be there every Saturday and Sunday morning without fail. Yeah. And that's essentially what I did. So I worked there Saturday and Sunday morning for 4 hours each day. And then I worked 8 hours on Thursdays, which was the day the weekend crew had off. So I gave them an extra guy on Thursday too.
Oh, there you go. And how long did you do that? You didn't do it all that long.
Well, I started work there in November and worked there until April.
So there you go. Again, but I always love this. I mean, and Ryan and I talked about it along with other people, but think about this, here's a guy with great experience in this industry, a great mentor, and is at the point in life where you just want to have, a couple hours to mow, so I assume you're mowing fairways in the early morning, but what a great opportunity. And I think I've shared this with you, but I know Ryan well enough to know that he got an awful lot of knowledge base from you in that short period of time that you were there. But what a great way to, you end a long, really productive career. You jump in your RV, you run around the country, you do a little work just to kind of get some free golf, and you help a young guy, out of the blue. And that's what you did. I don't know if you know the impact that you had with Ryan, but it was a pretty strong impact for those few months that you were there. But I've decided I'm gonna jump on Armin's game and say, look, we're gonna hire all the old retired guys and send them around the country and just spending a couple months playing some golf and helping a guy learn the tricks a little bit.
I actually, I think I played golf at Celebration maybe 4 times.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, I didn't, I did it because I just enjoy 5 o'clock in the morning. I enjoy the sunrise. That's really why I did it more than anything.
Yeah.
And both jobs I've had have been changing cups. That's all I do is change cups.
There you go. Well, but you know how to do it.
Which is an impossible job, again, on Saturday and Sunday morning, to find somebody that's going to do it and do it well.
And do it right. Exactly.
Which is really an important job. So
I'm gonna end on this, Mike, because we're coming up on our window here. But okay. You're wearing a T-shirt from one of my favorite sandwich shops, and this is a place called the Knicks in Philadelphia. And for those of you guys in the Philadelphia area and the East Coast, Philly is known for their cheesesteaks, but it's not the best sandwich in Philly. It's this roasted pork sandwich at the Knicks in the Reading Market, and it's unbelievably good. My son and I have gone down there a number of times, and he just loves it. But I assume that you took the RV through Philly at one point. Is that where that came from?
Yeah, we have a nephew that lives in Philly. He lives like 2 blocks from Marion.
Oh, really?
He was really upset when I didn't go to the Open there, which I couldn't get there. So yeah, I could have walked to Marion from his house.
No, that's the, you got to let me know when you come. I grew up about a mile from Marion. I went to
Okay.
high school right there, and I'm
Yeah.
only about an hour north of there. But
Okay, all right.
although it sounds like you're trading in the RV for a house soon, huh?
You know, not now. I mean, we had planned to buy a house this summer. We were planning to be in a house this
Yeah.
fall, but it's such a seller's market. It's not the time to buy a house. So we
Yeah.
said, heck with it.
So the plan is to just I mean, obviously COVID kind of messed up the whole travel thing, but you're going to keep the RV for a little bit longer and keep riding.
No, yeah, the plan is for Denise to finish the trail in
Oh, there you go. That's right.
this
So
year.
you're gonna go up north, and
Yeah.
so you basically just take the. So how does this work for you guys on the trail? You basically follow her along and then just
I
keep.
just follow her along, and I'll try and get to a point where I don't have to drive over 100 miles in one direction to get
Right.
her on or off the trail. So
There you go.
she goes out for 4, 5, 6 days at a crack, and then I'll pull her off for a day, 2 nights, and a day, and then put her back out, and away she goes.
There you go.
So I'd say it's worked pretty well, and you know, like I say, she's enjoyed it, and is actually contemplating doing a through hike and doing a hike starting again at Springer Mountain.
Oh,
and
wow.
and abandoning the 1,400 miles she's already done, so she can do a through hike and say she did a through hike. But whether she does or not, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Wow. Well, good luck to you, man. I appreciate your
Encourage
time. I've always enjoyed our company with you and the time, and I can't thank you enough for joining me. I am inspired by, you know, obviously all the folks that you've mentored. I'm inspired by the fact that you're living in a trailer and just traveling around and hopefully enjoying your life and, you know, and doing all the things that all of us that work our tails off think, man, that's where we want to be when we get to that point.
I literally couldn't enjoy my life much more than I have, and I've said that to my wife several times this past summer. You know, given the fact that, you know, what we've been able to do and accomplish, and the places we've seen,
Yeah.
it's truly phenomenal. And
No.
it's been a lot of fun and very enjoyable. But it's not for everybody. It's certainly not for everybody, and you certainly got to have one heck of a mate.
Yeah.
To be able to do this, and I got one of those, fortunately. So,
Yeah. Well, I wish you the very best. I hope she gets back on the trail. And again, I thank you. I'm going to need to get your address because I want to send you a little thank you, a gift for joining me today. But I don't know where, if you have an address, I'll just send it somewhere. Well, next time you land somewhere, but I'll stay in touch. And
we'll be in touch, sure.
Keep it on. And again, Mike, I can't thank you enough. And thank you all guys for listening. That is the Earthworks podcast. We are found wherever podcasts are found or on our website at soilfirst.com. And we'll be back again next week talking to somebody different. So thank you, Mr. Michael Kozak.
Hey, thanks, Joel. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.